let the part that doesn't feel worthy express. Let it come up and out.
Everyone has a maggot eating, crumb begging part of them.
That's right. If we don't love a part of ourselves, at least accept a part of ourselves, of course, we're not going to feel whole.
Yeah.
And wholeness is the foundation of worthiness.
And one of your phrases that I love that you use a lot is clients are everywhere.
There are people in your world that you could start serving, whether they're friends of your friends. You can start a workshop, invite them to bring a friend, and you give them a taste of your magic, give them an experience of working with you. And people get it.
How can one get to a level of confidence of charging $25,000 for a coaching package?
Yeah.
I'm Layla Martin. I'm your host of This Tantric Life. This podcast is for you to learn about and be able to use the incredibly powerful system of Tantra in your life. I have been teaching and studying classical and neo-Tantra for over 20 years. And when you apply that to sex, love, and relationships, as I love to do, you end up having conscious relationships, the deepest, most epic and magical sex, and the kind of intimacy that you get to be grateful for on your deathbed.
Welcome to This Tantric Life. I am Layla Martin, and I'm so excited for you to get to know and taste Alyssa Nobriga and the depth of her wisdom today. So she is the founder of the Institute for Coaching Mastery. She has been one of my best friends we'll be going on a decade pretty soon, which is such a huge blessing. And the reason I have her here today is that she carries a diamond quality of worthiness that I've almost never come across in a teacher before. And her wisdom refracts and inspires all of us to know our own worthiness. I find that working with her as a student or being one of her best friends is an invitation into worthiness in partnership. She has an incredible marriage that I respect so deeply. Worthiness in business, who you let yourself be in the world, how you let yourself express, and also something she'll share with us as well today, worthiness in money, in sales. I have never seen a woman own charging what she knows her work is worth with such confidence and such centeredness. So she'll be sharing with us how we can receive this worthiness transmission. I love a quote, Alyssa, that actually Jen, who's staying with us right now, I'm currently living at your house, and Jen is staying with us. And she said, what if the universe wants to give us everything that we've ever desired, but it's here to teach us worthiness, because we have to feel worthy enough to have it. And I loved that invitation as like a jumping off point of understanding what this journey of worthiness can be about.
Yeah. So I think my whole life has been showing me the egoic core story that I'm not good enough. I'm not successful enough. I think most people, I would say at least 98% of people could have some level of unconscious story around not good enough, something's wrong with me, not pretty enough, fill in the blank. And my approach to it has been to use everything that has triggered me to free me, to wake up to who I am beyond the identity or the story of I'm good enough or I'm not good enough. But the thing that has caused me the most pain has actually given me the greatest gift once I stopped running from it, or once I stopped trying to achieve myself worthy enough. And by actually stopping, I've ironically found that if you want to feel worthy, you embrace unworthiness. If you want to feel connected, you embrace loneliness. If you want to feel free, you embrace stuck. It's the last place the ego would look actually holds the key to what we deeply desire. And so not feeling worthy, actually, if I judge some part of me as not worthy, of course I'm not going to feel worthy. Life is a mirror. So if I stop to embrace this part of me that doesn't feel worthy, I instantly feel my wholeness. The wholeness that is here underneath the insecure thinking or the unworthy feelings. It kind of parts the cloud to embody this inherent worth and value that we all are, independent of anything we do.
So could you define for us what worthiness is in the material realm?
Yeah.
And I'm hearing you reference a kind of spiritual worthiness as well. Maybe they're like the same to you, or maybe they're different. How would you define them?
Great listening. Yeah. So I would say there's 3 levels of worth. There's I'm not good enough. I am good enough. Those are both egoic. And I don't think of ego as bad. I think we want healthy, integrated egos. Both the I'm good enough is an important part of our evolution. And then beyond that is beyond worthy. Who I am, it's like on a spiritual realm, we could never measure what we are. It's everything. And so there's an important aspect of knowing ourselves as whole and worthy as a human. And then there's waking up to our inherent worth beyond any idea of who we think we are in the spiritual realm. Both, I would say, are important. I think some of my journey I bypassed. I went from not good enough to waking up to my inherent worth. And now part of the work is to really embody a deeper sense of worthiness in the world and how that is reflected in business and in love.
I'm here to let you know that if you want to stay connected to my teachings and if you want to support this podcast, the best way to do it is to sign up for my email list. Email list sounds old school, and yet it is where I share my most intimate teachings, the path, process, heartbreak, and triumph of my life, and so much of the content that I make for you on a regular basis. So the way you get on the email list is by heading over to laylamartin.com, put your email address into any of the boxes. You can also sign up for cool practices like sex magic or energy orgasm, totally free. Heading on over to laylamartin.com, signing up with your email address. This supports the podcast. It supports this entire work and is the number one way for you to receive the highest teachings of this path. For me, if I take it super practically, right?
Yeah.
Like when I feel unworthy, like let me use love as an example. Like if I feel unworthy of being loved by a king who treats me well, who like fucks me into multi-orgasmic states, right? What is that actual unworthiness? It's like, it's the way I would describe it inside my body. Like, I don't deserve it. Mm-hmm. But if I go deeper than that, it's like actually a fear of having it. Mm-hmm. So for me, when I feel unworthy of something, I tell myself I don't deserve it. Mm-hmm. And I'm afraid of having it, mm-hmm. almost because I'm afraid of losing it. Because I don't deserve it. I'm afraid of losing it. Mm-hmm. So I will block myself from having it. Mm-hmm. And so unworthiness is a kind of barrier or block mm-hmm. to having what I might say I want, mm-hmm. to receiving all the blessings of this universe, to having my desires fulfilled, to living at the highest vibration. And what I hear you saying is that there's like a transworthiness, right? Because then once I feel worthy, so let's say like, okay, now I feel worthy of that level of love, of like a king of a man, like loving me and devoting to me and feeling safe and all of this. It goes hand in hand for me that I actually have to feel safe in that level of love mm-hmm. to feel worthy of it. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. When I feel safe to have it and I feel like I deserve it, it's like a concept of internally, somatically, like, do I deserve this thing? When I match that, I feel like I become a vibrational match for mm-hmm. that thing, mm-hmm. right? Mm-hmm. And then I think what's beyond that is a sense that I'm spiritually worthy of this life, of being alive, of existing at all, mm-hmm. right? And what's wild, I call it like coping with the goodness of life. Mm-hmm. It's like we're surrounded by magic and beauty. Like even in the shittiest human experience, the fact that we even get to breathe, mm-hmm. exist, mm-hmm. there could have been nothing, but there's something. Mm-hmm. It's like, wow, like the gift of that is so inconceivable, mm-hmm. let alone that for most of us, there could have been nothing, but now there's something that's full of dancing and magic and heartbreak and love and failure and loss and beauty. Like it's indescribable how amazing this life can actually be. And I feel like most of us don't even feel spiritually worthy of our own lives. Mm. And once we feel spiritually worthy, that game of like needing the king or needing the love or needing the money, it's like, it's not that you don't want to play the game anymore, but the game is secondary. Yes. To knowing that the real game is life. Like the real game is existing at all. Mm-hmm. And the rest of it's just kind of fun, or as the tantrics might say, play.
Yes, 100%. I think anytime we look for our worthiness or happiness or love outside of us, we hurt. Mm-hmm. So it's like, if I look for success to make me happy, if I look for my partner to make me happy, that's actually where I'm going to fall short. Where in the spiritual dimension is waking up to the happiness, the worthiness, the fulfillment that is here before we even go looking for it. Mm. And then we allow our relationships to flower without putting extra pressure that it needs to be a certain way for me to be okay. Mm. And then it's that's the surrendered path. That's where the magic happens. That's where we're already in touch with the wholeness of who and what we are. And we can project that into everyone we meet. You know, part of my path has been to use everyone as a mirror to teach me how to love myself more fully. And in that game, there's a bigger love affair than any one person could ever give us. And we discover that everyone's our soulmate, helping us evolve our soul. That's the bigger love affair, this finding the one in everyone. And so as we do that, we wake up to our wholeness. And yes, then we project it into everyone and everything. And kind of that's more of this spiritual context where we're just sinking our teeth into all of it, as all of it. And I know we can go grounded, we can talk about the egoic realms, and we can also talk about the spiritual realms. But for me, without the spiritual dimension, there's not this deeper, I mean, I think that's what life is craving, for us to wake up to a deeper love, this love affair with all of life, more than just trying to manipulate one person to give us all our needs, thinking that we're lacking in some way.
Let's start with practical first, and then we can go super spiritual, because one of the things that you have been such an amazing support for me on my journey is that initiation into love, and the spiritual love, allowing the reflection of love in marriage or the reflection of love in partnership to be deeply aligned, deeply peaceful, very high vibration, but that the magnetism, to be magnetic to that kind of partnership, comes from the spiritual alignment, right?
Yes.
So I'd love for us to drop into that initiation from you. But first, I'd love for everyone listening to get a worthiness teaching from you. So I'm going to lay it out really quick, which is the ways in which I myself have been profoundly unworthy. So unworthiness has been a lifetime challenge for me in so many ways. And I'll give a couple of examples. So even in community, right? It took me a long time to even appreciate that people like wanted to be my friend. And even to the point where I'd say this was probably a year ago, there were like these like really big people, and like, yeah, okay, they were famous, but it was also like, I really liked the way they did life. I would never be friends with people just because they were famous. That's super hollow to me.
Yeah.
But they were living in an expanded level of consciousness that I respected. Like they could move mountains and universes, and they had a kind of visionary quality to them, combined with this bigness in the world. And they seemed to want to be my friend. And my unworthiness was coming up to the degree that I was actually getting anxiety attacks, that they didn't want to be friends with me afterwards. We'd have these experiences or parties or fun times, and I'd go into this panic. And one of my friends, Andrew Horn, Mickey Agarwal's ex-husband, he was sitting there and he was watching me go through this anxiety attack. And he was like, Layla, do you not realize that you are one of the most fun people to party with in the entire universe? That anyone feels lucky to be with you at a party? And I was like, the fuck? And like, this is how I can see sometimes that my own self-conception doesn't match like what I'm capable of, to be in a certain room, to be at a certain party, to have friends that I care about and love. And I'm not trying to make worthiness about, you know, being with these people or that people or whatever, but there is a quality of, I feel worthy of going to my own version of the best parties. I feel worthy of having my own version of the best friends. I feel worthy of whatever it is that I want to feel worthy of, and tracking in myself, like, like my own self-conception being so much lower than the reality. Right. And so that's one way in which I looked into the mirror and was like, whoa. And here's the thing about worthiness. I was like, all right, I'm going to upgrade that. And I would say for like the first time in my life now, I feel really worthy of being in any room at any party with any kind of friends. And that was this like, okay, I'm going to make that jump. Right. And then you and I have talked quite a lot about worthiness in partnership, worthiness in love, right? And I've used this metaphor a lot in my weekly emails of like, I feel like my story of worthiness has been, I will sit on the street and beg for crumbs of food when I own a Michelin star restaurant behind me and I could go in and order any meal I want and people would serve it to me, anything I wanted. And I'm like begging for crumbs outside. And even my coach said yesterday, you know, he's like, Layla, there's just this part of you that's so addicted to working so hard for a crumb, right? And this is my childhood part. And I want to just out this as someone who like, I have a life that most people would look at and say, wow, like you must feel very worthy of so many things. And I do feel very worthy of many things. I feel worthy of money and my career and health and now deep community and now deep love and partnership. But I have worked my ass off to get there. And I have, you know, even recently I sat all night long in a darkness retreat with Shipibo grandmothers. And I swear this one like 92-year-old woman was sitting there, you know, chanting her Icaros with the like power of their transmission. And I felt her dragging this ancestral unworthiness out of me. And it was so like intense and so deep how much these ancestral things can get into our DNA and our bodies and control the way that we think about ourselves. It's like this trance of unworthiness has hypnotized so many of us. And I have what I have in my life by virtue of choosing this path of worthiness. But I've needed teachers like you, reflectors like you, people like you to show me that that's even possible. So for someone listening who's like, okay, in this area of my life, let's say love, where I know I don't feel worthy and what I'm attracting, what I'm magnetizing, I know isn't a match to my soul, a match to my deepest desires. How do they practically go about going from unworthy to worthy? And then we'll talk about worthy to transworthy.
Beautiful. Well, the first part I just want to highlight is, you know, that it's a part of you. It's not the whole part of you. It's not the wholeness of you. So if there's a part that doesn't feel worthy, and this is why I love coaching, because if any time we start taking steps towards what we want, everything that's been unresolved gets highlighted. And these are protector parts. They're just trying to keep us safe. But we have a self-image of ourselves that's made up, and we have upper and lower limits, right? And so anytime we go higher, it starts to create some kind of drama to bring us down or tell us we can't do it because it doesn't think we're safe. And so I think the first part of it is understanding this is a part of us that doesn't feel worthy. It's not all of us. That which sees the unworthiness is beyond the unworthiness. So I know that's somewhat in the spiritual realm, but it's about bridging and having the essence, the truth of our being, embrace the ego. Or you can say a higher integrated ego in meeting and transmuting the unworthiness part. So however you want to hold it, spiritually or psychological, as long as those two parts meet. So what I like to say is, let the part that doesn't feel worthy express. Let it come up and out. So you can journal about it. You can just presence it somatically. You can give it voice and let it just, unedited talk, however you hear it inside. I don't feel worthy for this partnership. I'm not good enough. And then as it's expressed through presence, then to meet it with compassion. So you would offer, what would the part of you that does know you're worthy? Because even if somebody listening to this conversation knows that there's a level of worth that they're stepping into. So what does that part of us say to the part that's unworthy? And to start to meet it is where it starts to transform, not to run away from it, not to make sure that we're sexy enough or beautiful enough or successful enough to outrun it, but to actually drop in and embrace it and to question the stories that it's been telling us. That, one way is emotionally embracing those parts. Another way is to question the beliefs that we're hearing within ourselves. And then lastly, to feel into and to breathe into the sensations in our body somatically, because as we're hearing it, it's going to get activated in our body so we can presence it in with the breath, just to say you're allowed here. Like there's a loving presence within you, within everyone, that is the healing agent. That is what sets it free. And our courage and our willingness to stop and to go there actually starts to transform it. And because life's a mirror, you will attract different partners. You will attract different people. I know for me in my own journey, I used my mom. So most people know at this point that we attract partners that are going to mirror both our parents' gifts and their challenges, right? So I really did 9 months of working psychologically with my trigger around my mom. My mom, I don't know, mother-daughter dynamics, like she would say hello and I'd already be triggered. And I felt guilty for that, but I needed to look at that within me. So I took 9 months. I used to be in monogamous relationships for 3 years at a time. And I was like, who am I outside relationship? I wanted to do some of this deeper work. And so I started to work my projections with my mom, not even with her, but within myself, somatically, emotionally, mentally, the projections. And this is part of the methodology that I teach. But as I did that, it started to dissolve. Doesn't mean that it's never going to come up, but the container for when it does come up and to have the tools to embrace this part instantly starts to shift it. It doesn't have to take long. And the fact that we can see the parts and not identify them or judge them is what helps them. That's what helps transmute it. It's like this reservoir of unexpressed emotion, of unworthiness that over time starts to die out or drain out. That dam is empty, and then it doesn't get activated so much unless we go to our next level, unless we do something that feels even bigger outside of our threshold of who we think we are and what we think we're capable of.
I am taking a moment to share with you about one of my most powerful programs. This is the VITA Coaching certification. It is a year-long professional training in how to have a tantric approach to sex, love, and relationships. It will not only transform your experience of sex, love, and relationships to the highest possibility for you in this lifetime, but will empower you with the keys, tools, and technology to be able to offer the same for your clients, because you will have such potent results that you can get for clients in an area that they most deeply desire. You will also be able to charge premium pricing for your coaching packages. We not only train you in VITA Coaching on the art of coaching, but also extensive business training so that you can sell your coaching packages as well. Doing one of the most powerful, most transformative, most effective trainings around sex, love, and relationships is something that you are called for to professionalize your healing gifts and skills. Head on over to laylamartin.com, sign up in the VITA Coaching area to find out more about the program, or get on my email list anywhere on laylamartin.com, and we will let you know about the program, when it opens, how you can apply, and when you can join.
Okay, so if I break that down, like as we're having this conversation, I feel into the parts of myself that I'm like, you're unworthy, so we don't deserve to be at this party, or you're unworthy, so we don't deserve to be in this relationship. It's like my poison that I like to drink would be, there's something wrong with you.
Yeah.
So I think everyone has a slightly different poison. Like you were saying, you're not good enough, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think other people's poison is, I'm unlovable, like whatever it is. Mine is like, there's something wrong with you.
Yeah.
So I get to unworthiness by being like, there's something wrong with this percentage of parts of me.
Yeah.
Therefore, I don't deserve to have these friends. I don't deserve to have this money. I don't deserve, I'm not worthy of this kind of partnership, right? So the foundation for me, as I'm feeling into it, is the original belief that there's something wrong with any part of me. Mm-hmm. So what you're saying of embody it helps, in my experience, for me to stop making those parts so wrong.
That's right.
So like, Mama Gina has a practice called swamping where like, back in the day before, like now we have a more ecologically friendly way of doing this, but you would literally put on a black garbage bag and just be in your like gnarly, low vibration, unworthiness rolling around. And I did some version of this in my own, jungle tantra days, where I literally have like an unworthiness crawl on the floor where like, it's like I'm in some vibration of having like open scabs and needing begging for money or whatever it is, like some vibration of that. And I'm literally on my hands and knees. And it looks like that girl from The Ring. Yeah. If you ever remember that horror movie, and she's got like her hair and that's snotting everywhere and it's like super demonic. Okay. So that's my unworthiness crawl. Yeah. So this is like, when people are like, well, how do I embody my unworthiness? I would literally be like, oh, there's so much unworthiness here. But as you're pointing out, most people's response, like our culturally conditioned response, is must not feel that, right? We other it, we push it away. So we can either embody it truly, deeply somatically, like feel it, let it express through our bodies, like I'll like be in the fetal position or like crawling around being like, I'm going to eat maggots or whatever it is. Like, cause that's what that part of me feels like, that I've been like, that part's wrong. Yeah. And that's why that part doesn't deserve X, Y, and Z. When I embody it, it's like, oh, I can actually love that part of me. So stop pushing it away. But this other thing happens where I'm also like,
everyone has a maggot eating, crumb begging part of them. Maybe it's different than mine. Like, and maybe they have it in an area that I like fucking figured it out, or vice versa, or whatever. But then all of a sudden I'm sitting in the room, and instead of being like, I don't deserve to be here because I have this like maggot eating, ring crawling, like horrific part of me that just wants to rip the bottom out of all the goodness in my life. Everyone here has the same thing.
That's right.
So why am I telling myself the story that I don't deserve to be here? Or the king in front of me has that same thing in him to some degree. So why am I telling myself that story? And I'll be real. These parts of us, when they're unconscious, they do wreak mega havoc, right? So I could actually make myself not deserve to be in that room by letting the crumb begging, maggot eating, ring crawling part of me be an asshole to people.
Yeah, lead your life.
Sabotage my relationship. And then I will actually literally make myself unworthy of the thing by being unconscious of the part of me that believes that so bad that it wants to create it at all costs.
That's right.
So loving it, owning it, knowing that it's a part of us and not the truth of us,
That's right.
embodying it, like literally to the degree of putting on a piece of music 5 minutes every morning and being like, I'm going to embody my unworthiness right now. Like it can be that simple, but that powerful.
Yeah.
That's like step one, where you're like, instead of like pushing you away, I'm going to pull you in and let you be okay and let you be a part of me and let myself feel more wholeness. And that the trick is that the worthiness and the feeling of wholeness doesn't come from getting rid of the unworthiness. What you're saying is the more that I can embrace and love the unworthiness, strangely, the more worthy I feel.
That's right. That's 100% it. If we don't love a part of ourselves, at least accept a part of ourselves, of course, we're not going to feel whole.
Yeah.
And wholeness is the foundation of worthiness. So as we say yes to all these parts, we don't judge them, we don't identify with them, but we're just to embrace. Yeah. That's what helps us embody an authentic confidence, an inherent worth and value. And under all the thoughts, all the feelings is this ground of well-being that is available. And it doesn't matter where we are in our life, if we're with a partner, we're not with a partner, we have money or success, it's available right now. And something within us already knows this. It is who and what we already are.
So that going from unworthy to worthy, I think is really the story of, I don't have enough money, now I have money. I was in a shitty shitty relationship with some asshole. Now I got a dope partner.
Yeah.
Right? Like I didn't let myself put myself out there. Now I have this amazing podcast, right? Like that can be our most culture's concept. Going from unworthy to worthy.
Yeah.
Although also, the trick of that is also being like, if the podcast fails or the money goes or that we get a divorce from the partner, I'm still going to be worthy.
That's right.
Right? Like it starts to transcend circumstance. And then that is the going from worthy to like a spiritual worthiness, or what I'm calling transworthiness. So tell me more about that process.
Yeah.
Because I actually see this, it's very rare that people go from unworthy to transworthy. I would love your perspective on this. I feel like most people have to get enough worthiness in the material realm.
Yeah.
Even if that looks like being somewhat broke, but I feel worthy enough of walking around barefoot in the forest and doing my spiritual practices, like there's a kind of worthiness to that.
Yeah. I do feel like if you have enough suffering of a not good enough or unworthiness, it's easy to pop into beyond worthy, into the spiritual dimension, because it hurts to be this egoic form that is not good enough or defective in some way. So it is actually easy to pop, but I think most people aren't that spiritually oriented. And so I think it's more natural to go from unworthy to worthy to beyond worthy.
So there's hope for all of us.
There is hope. We already are it. We're just unconscious to it.
Yeah.
And that's why it happens in an instant. It's not about fixing ourselves. It's about waking up. And as we do that, we start to embody a deeper sense of presence and allowance for all parts of ourselves, which helps us then live life more authentically and aligned, rather than getting caught up at being dependent on who I'm with, how I look, how successful I am. And even if those things get rocked, we've got the presence and the know-how to come back to our center. And I do think it's important not to be a one-trick pony. I think having tools mentally, emotionally, and somatically help us actually integrate it. Because as soon as we think something, our body's going to react. And then our behaviors come from that. So having something, especially around a core wound that is more integrated, is going to be supportive so that we don't just keep having to do the work again and again around thoughts of I'm not worthy. Okay, wait, no. What part of me is thinking that? No, how do I actually integrate it in a deep way so I don't have to keep perpetuating it? Then it gets more stabilized, or we have the tools to come back to it.
Right. And a good sense of humor, right? I'm
a good sense of humor.
Layla Martin begging for crumbs again. A tiny crumb. Just give it to me, please. So hungry. All right. So one of the things that I've loved in this going to like spiritually worthy.
Yeah.
Like a phrase that one of my tantric mentors, Ernest Morrow, uses a lot is feeling the gift of my life. And we got into this fight once where I was saying the thing that I knew you weren't supposed to say. Like I knew I was supposed to spiritually feel a different way, but I didn't. He was like, Layla, no one's special. And I was like, you know, I'm fucking special. He was like, no one's special. And I knew that spiritually, right. And I'm supposed to tell all of you listening to the podcast, like, I don't feel that special. I'm super humble. And there is a quality to me of wanting to connect with everyone, wanting to love everyone, like not wanting to isolate myself with some idea of specialness. And there's also a huge egoic part of me that's like, no, I'm a special snowflake. Like, and a lot of that comes from my trauma, right? Wanting to know that I'm special because that'll somehow make all the pain go away. Some of it comes from my familial conditioning that I really grew up in a family that was like, we overcome shitty childhoods by being type A and using that as like a protective mechanism against the world. And then we judge others for their like inferiority, right? So there's a lot there. And it's a little vulnerable to say that. That's right. That's in my mind somewhere. In that, right, like I am a special snowflake, and I think a lot of us can identify with that or wanting to be special. The thing that Ernest really articulated for me is he was like, but if you look at the magnificence of any human, and I know this now from any process, right, like doing Hoffman, teaching my own retreats, being in meditation retreats, when you get humans out of their egoic shell and their pain, every human is magnificent. Every human is like magnetically beautiful. And he was like, the universe of beauty in any human is so massive that the delta between any one of you of I'm a little bit more special, I've got a little bit more spiritual gift, I've got a little bit more money, my hair's a little shinier, whatever, like whatever we want to like say makes us special, got a little bit more gift of gab or charisma. It's so small compared to the magnitude of beauty in any human. And that's what I feel like we miss. Because of course, some of us are like a little bit more special in whatever musical talent. I have zero musical talent. So I can look at other people and be like, yo,
you got it.
You got it. I don't got it there. But my fundamental magnificence and their fundamental magnificence, there's no contest when you start looking at it that way.
That's right.
So when I started to feel that like life isn't about being so special and life isn't about having everything. It's about knowing, like inherently knowing the gift of this life. So nothing is wrong. Nothing was ever wrong because no matter how worthy I become, my partner's still going to pass away one day. I'm still going to get sick one day. I'm still going to have cycles of failure. How could I not if I'm really living, right? And so even worthiness is not a protection against the cycles of life. So the spiritual worthiness is, can I know that I deserve being alive because all of what I am is actually okay. All of what I am is beautiful. All of what I am belongs. And then it's like, oh, I'm liberated from my worthiness being dependent on money or sex or love. It's a huge leap to make.
I think in that realm, there's not even an idea of deserving. It just is. And you're in touch with the beauty and the nature that we are. And that's the bigger love affair. And that we can then project it and see and experience that with everyone and everything. That's what I'm most interested in. And I think people are waking up to that now. And I think one of the ways that I came to a spiritual dimension of love was through leaving a tantric lover. And, was with this man who I was high all of the time. Like I didn't eat, I didn't sleep. And, it was beautiful to be in his presence, but I could tell that us spiritually didn't align in the sense where he was chasing states of consciousness. And my spiritual knowing is that it's in all of it. It's yes to the full human experience, not just high states. And he had commitment issues. And so him not fully showing up, I needed to honor what my truth was to leave that relationship. And I remember lying down on the couch one day and I had this thought of him and I was like, I watched my body light up and I'm like, and then the next thought was he's gone. And then I got sad and deflated. And in that moment, I realized before I had the thought that he was gone, I just woke up to all of the love that I thought he gave me. And I realized it wasn't dependent on him. He evoked it inside of me, but he didn't own it. He couldn't take it away. And so when I discovered that, I was like, oh, this is what I am. I can love more freely because it's evoked by a flower, by a friend, by a lover, and it's independent of something outside. And so that moment helped me wake up to more of the spiritual dimension that people evoke love within us, but they don't give it to us and therefore they can't take it away.
And what's been so powerful about my experience of you, right, is because before when I would hear that as like a spiritual teaching through Osho or whatever, I'd be like, yeah, that's just a story people tell themselves when like they can't find a great partner. So they're like, oh yeah, like God is everywhere.
I am it.
Yeah. And like instead of it's just something I tell myself when I'm crying alone in my room, like the flower can love me. And but what's beautiful about you and what you're such a shining example of is right after that, with that alignment of love, you magnetized an epic man, right? Emilio, who we all love and know to be this like upstanding man. And while you don't have a perfect marriage, no one does, what has been amazing that I've really seen from you and learned from you is you have a deeply peaceful, stable love. Right. Yeah. And it vibrates at a very high frequency of adoration, of love, of care. There's not, it's got a fabric of safety to it that's really tangible. Right. And so I've interviewed a lot of people on this podcast that are like on wild roller coasters of love. Right. And every flavor and version of love has its own beauty. What I really respect in experiencing your partnership is that stability. And it's almost like the stability allows for a very high frequency of partnership as well. So can you tell us a little bit more how that alignment with the truth of love itself, the truth of spiritual love, has allowed you to create that kind of marriage?
Yeah. I think, well, after this tantric man is when I connected with Emilio, my husband. And him and I met at a master's program in spiritual psychology. We had done a lot of the work. A lot of the big boulders were kind of out of the way. And I do feel like most relationships are to come together to help each other heal our core parent, challenges. And as we do that, we sort of evolve into other octaves of love. Not to say that it's always done. There are pebbles that come up. And I think one of the things we do is prioritize those pebbles like you and I do in our friendship. We also do in our marriage, where if anything comes up, we don't stuff it under the rug. We have a safe space to share about it, to unpack it so it doesn't build up. We go to therapy or do coaching regularly. We've been together 14 years and we always do it. And it's like, why not invest time to have deeper levels of intimacy and love? But I was reflecting on this, I didn't recognize him when I first met him. And I think that's an important piece because I wasn't choosing from a pattern. I was just being present. I remember one of the things I was doing was dancing with no meaning. And at the end of these dances, I was like face to face with Emilio. I'm like, okay, I'm not making meaning of this, not making meaning of this. And it was like life wanted this to happen. I just surrendered and let it unfold the way that it wanted to, rather than being like, I need this from a partner. I'm looking for that. And it allowed something to flourish that was much more beautiful than I could have planned for. But I also wasn't thinking that he needed to fill me in some way. I was also awake more to this bigger love. And I wasn't projecting it onto him. I was projecting it onto everyone. And I think that also made it easier to allow our marriage to flower. But the presence that he holds is safety for me. And, we have a really beautiful marriage. And I sometimes hesitate to tell people that because I don't want that to hurt people. But I also think it's important to have examples of what's possible. And we all value different things. And so I think being with somebody, choosing somebody that is aligned with our values, the lifestyle that we want to live. But I don't believe in one special love. I think everyone is the one. We can find that within everyone. And so then we choose people to do life with from this joy and love and presence and safety. But it's not, I feel empty and I need you to fill me. It comes from a different place.
Yeah. And I think that's a core of what creates a kind of stability in your partnership, from what I can see, is a lot of the rockiness, and even in like sacred relationship or conscious relationship that people experience, I feel like is the universe teaching people that they are love through their partnership.
That's right. That's right.
So if you already know that you're love, or you're aligned to that as a deeper truth, it allows you to just enjoy your partnership a lot more.
That's right.
You have to be bashing your head against the wall trying to learn the like universal lesson, and having your partner be like an innocent bystander to that process.
Yeah.
Not that I am familiar with that. But you can actually know that and own that as the truth to embody. And then I have seen that allows for more peaceful partnership.
Yeah. And I love what you're sharing, because we all have one area of our life at least where we're working something out. And to use relationships as a vehicle for awakening is powerful and beautiful. And or using business as a spiritual practice for awakening. And, you know, in the beginning of meeting Emilio, it wasn't perfectly aligned. We had this onboarding experience of like, what are my non-negotiables? What's important for me? But I was willing to walk if he wasn't in alignment with that. And he really did rise. He really did. It called him forward to step into the man that he is today. And therefore it worked for us. And we did that for each other. And I just want to plug and highlight, you know, our marriage is really beautiful. And we just recently went to Bali, and having you there just elevated our sex life in a way that I was like, thank you, Layla. And it's so beautiful, you know, and we'll talk about it on my podcast later today, just about you giving me the framework that intimacy is as important to him as safety is for me. Helped me move through my feminist women being objectified, you know, unconscious part of me to be like, I love this man and I want to show up to love him the way that he loves best. And so I love optimizing and keep, you know, getting better. And I just want to thank you for bringing that into my life and all the beautiful sexual ways that you inspire my world. But those things that we both continue to do the work, and we both continue to love each other in the ways that we want to be loved. And we had non-negotiables. And I think that's an important piece of it.
I think it's interesting as well that you brought up, sometimes I hesitate to say that we have a beautiful partnership.
Yeah.
And I've really thought about this, because there are a lot of truly unhappy couples, like truly unhappy. And I think one way that you can stay in a deeply unhappy relationship is by telling yourself that everyone's unhappy. And as much as we say like, oh, we all look everywhere and see all these happy couples on Instagram, there's also a real part of us that's like, fuck them, they're not happy. I know nobody's happy, right? Nobody's that happy. Put the smiling baby down. And here is what I think is true. I think we have caused ourselves a world of toxicity and pain by telling ourselves that there are perfect relationships. There is no perfect relationship. I think we've caused ourselves a world of pain by telling ourselves there's a perfect person. And I know that you would say, like, you and Emilio have struggled with certain things, that there are ways in which you both have wanted each other to grow. There are ways in which you've referenced the start of your relationship had elements that were not acceptable, you know? So there is no perfect relationship. And when we hold too much of an idea of perfection, we can miss beauty. But there are beautiful relationships. And you have a beautiful relationship where the love is so deep, where there is harmony, where there is deep respect, where there is deep safety, where there is deep intimacy, right? That exists. So I think where the cultural conversation is that I've really thought about, so we want the message that relationships can be beautiful. So if we're in a relationship that is not beautiful, that's super hard. We either need to do the work.
That's right.
And oftentimes looking at our partner and being like, it's your fault. Occasionally, every once in a while, there is a truly toxic partner, and I always have to say this, that is really bad for you, right? Like that can like actually ruin your life, regardless of gender. leave that fucking relationship. But the vast majority of the time, we haven't done our own work.
Yeah.
And we're thinking that our partner is the problem. But if we don't do the work, we're just going to magnetize the same thing again.
That's right.
So the calling is usually to do the work, but not to sit in a relationship that's profoundly unhappy or profoundly dissociated or profoundly numb and say nothing else is possible.
Yeah.
Because that's not true.
Yeah.
But also not to hold your relationship to an unfair standard.
That's right.
Because even some of the most blessed, sacred, beautiful unions, still sometimes you're like, yo, that was fucked up. Or like, I don't want to do this with you right now. Like whatever the thing is, like it can be there on some level. And that is part of true love. That is part of long-term partnership.
Yeah. And to use everything that triggers us to free us.
Yeah.
So even the thing that came up in whatever partnership or friendship, to actually use that to get more free, like you're saying, because if I try to ask you to be different, I'm still going to play out that pattern with someone else, somebody on my team, somebody that in another friend. And how do I look at, okay, instead of getting so focused on the person, what's the pattern that's getting triggered? Because then I can take ownership to look at what's my relationship with that, or how is that trying to teach me something? And we can work it out in the friendship or in the marriage or relationship. And we also have the tools for when our partners aren't emotionally available to meet us in the ways that we need, like a yes and conversation. But yeah, I love it. Yes, no to perfection. And from the other angle, yes to the perfection of that coming up in service to you having deeper love, deeper connection, because everyone's going to fight at some point. But do you grow closer together as a result of that? I know that changed the game for me when I was a couples therapist. I was like, oh, that's normal. It's just, how do we fight? Is there respect and love? And not to kind of go into unconscious dynamics, but to think beforehand when our prefrontal cortex is on board, how do we want to fight? How do we want to move through misunderstandings? I think that sets the tone not to go unconscious and hurt each other, which then there's no repair sometimes. So it's like, how do I use everything that's coming up to grow closer together, to evolve, to open my heart more fully to this person that I love? Friendship or lover.
Yes. And you've been such a huge inspiration and teacher for me in that way. So I feel like I have gotten to a place of being ready for partnership at a level that I never have been in my life through teachings of the path of devotion, which have really come from Rachel Pringle and Annie Lala and other people that I've had on this podcast. And you've really been the initiator of Worthiness, which Annie was as well, and universal alignment with love. And the thing that universal alignment with the truth of love has given me is when my traumatized little girl is desperate to experience love, but believes it's outside of her, she will become terrified of losing love because it means everything to her. So she will either sabotage the love because she's so afraid of having it and the fear of losing it. Or when she gets it, she'll like hold on with an iron fist and suffocate the whole thing. Right? Or go numb because it's too uncomfortable to feel all those feelings. So over time, as I've aligned with this higher, like frequency of love in the universe, frequency of love in myself, frequency of being the truth of love, frequency of everyone being my soulmate, which is something that you say often, my little girl has been able to be held by that inside of me. And so she's no longer so terrified of losing love because, you know, even a few months ago when I thought I was going to go through a breakup and I was going to have this devastating heartbreak. And for the first time in my life, because heartbreak has always felt atrocious to me, like atrocious, right? Heartbreak sucks for everyone. It's literally the worst human feeling that a human can have pretty much. And I had layered on top of all of that, abandonment from my biological father, terror that without love, I wouldn't survive, feelings of deep unworthiness that any kind of heartbreak revealed. So I was like, this is bad enough, but let's pile on all the other worst feelings in the universe from our childhood and make it super personal and like unbearable, right? So every single time I'd go through a heartbreak, I'd like lose a bunch of weight because I'd like to be too depressed to eat or function. And like, I like could barely make it through the night. Like it was like heartbreak was like, right? I was literally sitting there. I was like sitting on a bed in Australia and I was like, so what if you have a broken heart? Who cares? But like I meant it. It wasn't like a spiritual bypass. I was like, you've had a broken heart so many times in this lifetime. You're going to have several broken hearts in this lifetime. Even if it's that you found your soulmate and then he fucking dies, like one way or another, or you die and leave him behind. The heartbreak is going to happen no matter what.
Yeah.
You've been through it a million times, but you know that you are love. You know that life is spectacular. You know you're worthy of love. You know you're worthy of awesomeness. If this thing doesn't work out, something more amazing is going to come along, right? But instead of trying to tell myself that, because before I tried to tell myself that, I would know it, right? And that's the gift of this alignment with that deeper love is like, oh, wow, I know that. So I can face down heartbreak, which then gives me the power to do what you said you could do all those years ago, right? I think 11, 12 years ago, right? With Emilio. You've been together 14 years?
14 years.
14 years. Got it. You've been married 12, 11.
10.
10. Okay. Got it. So 14 years ago, you knew how to do that. But the reason that so many of us can't stand for ourselves in relationship and what we want and actually say, like, that's the most important decision you make in your life is who you're going to spend your life with. And very few of us get the courage to admit to ourselves what we want and need, but then the courage to stand for it.
Yeah.
And mostly that's because we're afraid of the heartbreak. We're afraid of the feelings of unlovability, of loneliness, of failure, of all the stuff. So this alignment with spiritual love isn't like, okay, now I'll be cool with my cat. And I'm just telling myself that the flower loves me or whatever, which was like my stupid story before, just because I was like terrified of knowing universal love. Once I'm aligned with universal love, I can actually stand for the partnership that I'm worthy of and have the discernment to choose the right partner to the best of my ability. No one ever knows for sure. It gives you a pretty damn good shot. And then the other thing that you've said to me that I've shared with other people numerous times is you were like, don't pick with your mind because your mind will choose the pattern.
That's right.
Let life show you.
Yeah.
So when the prayer is in place, this is how I put it, right? My prayer is bring me the highest love, the deepest sex, most beautiful partnership. That's my prayer, right? If you're just like, oh, I'm going to let life show me, but you have no prayer, life doesn't know what to show you, right? So you're like, life will show you the highest love if your prayer is the highest love, right? So set your prayer and then listen, because you're right. For many of us, like the vast majority of us got imprinting that love's not safe or deep parental imprinting or like we have all these sabotaging things going on or like we're just human, we want to run after the pretty shiny thing, you know? And like, you're like, what does good hair get me after 5 years, you know? And so in that, it's like, okay, my prayer is in place. I'm going to let life reveal to me what this love is because my mind might not always know.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think even just to take it even more granular, it's like that the spiritual love, the love that you are really meeting the parts of us in a somatic, present way, the parts that feel unworthy or are scared, as we really drop in, we feel a sense of wholeness. So we're not looking for more. Yeah. And then we see the bigness and the magic of everything. And then life does show us because we're not grasping, we're not gripping onto something that is toxic or patterned. And so as we really tune in, it's like that biggest love is here now. And we wake up to that. And then we're magnetic. That's the most attractive energy in the world. It's like you're lit up, turned on, and people are like, I want what she's having, you know? And so that you falling in love and being in a state of loving is the most magnetic thing we can do to attract a partner. And then we don't settle for something less than we can offer ourselves. We are in partnership that either matches us or elevates us. And it is freeing. It is settling to the nervous system. And we can also be with the parts that are looking to be presence, but we have that liberating agency, which is being the presence of love for these parts of ourselves. And we can do that in friendship. You know, when I was before Emilio, I took these 9 months to date myself. With my best friend, we would just be with these parts of ourselves that got triggered. And I was like, okay, if I do this work now, then I don't have to play it out in whoever I'm going to be with next because I'm addressing it. And I love that we have that. We can be there to speak the honesty. And I love some of the work that I find so helpful. There's your invitation for me to get messy, to get more human. And as I do that and I bring in a deeper dimension of truth and love, like that's the alchemy, you know, that's what helps open our hearts and our minds, no matter what we're going through. And it's so attractive. It's so magnetic.
Yeah. All right, enough about love. We're going to give people what they really want, which is one of your main expertises is how to make more money.
Yeah.
So, and it's the same tools work, right?
Yeah,
like
that's right.
getting worthy of love and partnership
That's right.
is the same tools that will work for getting worthy of money and making a sale and putting yourself out there,
That's
right? So I'd love if you would break it down for us. What does it look like for someone to start feeling worthy of money? And then I'd also love, because you are such a queen of sales, right? And both of our audiences are coaches in training, doing this work professionally themselves. I want to hear some of your best tips on how to sell coaching packages because you're so good at it.
Okay.
You're so good at it. You're still the most money I ever paid for a coach, and you're still the best coach I ever had.
Thank you.
So I was like,
yes.
Yeah, years and years and years and years ago. So yeah, it's really special. I'm also going to make us some sex magic.
Please do.
Which is my, as you teach us about money, which is my supplement company, Plant Activated. And so it's got lots of herbs that turn you on, light you up, make sex feel more amazing, but also make podcasting feel more amazing. And me and Alyssa have actually taken this before in combination with sensuality and had epic dance parties.
Yes, we did.
And then Alyssa was
I had like a full body orgasm just from dancing and sex magic. I'm like, I want what you're having. I want more of that.
And I still remember you being like all sweaty and looking so hot. And you were like, my husband's going to be so happy when I get home. And I was like, yeah.
He was. He loves when I spend time with you.
All right. Tell us how to make money.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So yeah, the same principles apply of like using business as a spiritual path. So I think first off, we have to differentiate who we are with what we do. So if it's like, people say this all the time, and I know it has the best meaning of like, charge what you're worth, or you deserve that. But if we deserve something, then there's going to be a pendulum swing, then we don't deserve it, right? It's still in the egoic angle or lens of it. And so if there are ideas that like putting myself out there and my identity is trapped with what I do, I'm not going to be able to take the feedback to grow my business. I'm going to be on a roller coaster of like, it's doing well, it's not doing well. And so
also if someone says no on a sales call, and they're saying no to you.
That's right. Rather than your services. Yeah. So it's like, put yourself out there versus putting your services out there.
Yeah.
Right. Charge what you're worth. It's like, no, you are priceless. Your services, on the other hand, are not.
Yeah.
And so really getting that who you are is separate than what you do helps you feel and use business as a spiritual practice. So you know that in your bones. You can hear no's and it's not about you, just like dating. It's not personal. I just don't have I'm not a fit for the pattern of their trauma, and therefore it's not personal to me. And so it's the same with business. And so really, I took the challenges that I had around money and I started to do my work with it. And as I did that, for one, I had less people say, I can't afford it. And two, when they did come forward to say I couldn't afford it, I leaned in to support them the way that I just found freedom using money as a path to experience a deeper level of freedom, meaning doing the mindset work helped me actually get free. And I wanted to offer that to whoever I was talking to so that they could experience a deeper freedom than any amount of money could offer them.
Okay. I love that. Tell us about like, how can one get to a level of confidence of charging $25,000 for a coaching package?
Yeah. So I think that's high ticket coaching. And I would say invest in your training, invest in feeling so confident about the work that you do that you can back higher fees with real value. And that's why I love when people take certifications. It's like genuinely, that's one of the best ways to elevate your game. You get good, not just good at what you do, but you are the best of the best. You feel good about the services that you're offering. You work with less people, but you need to prioritize doing your own work because your consciousness is what's going to help take somebody deeper. And so it's not self-care is not a luxury as a coach. It's part of your professional responsibility. You need to do your own work so that you can serve at the highest level. And I do think continuing to get training, continuing to work with a coach, doing our own work helps us evolve and having the tools so that we can feel proud of the work that we're offering in the world, to feel a level of confidence and embody that. And the work is always inside out. So as you start to get better at what you do and use every trigger that happens in business to free you, you embody this. And then the strategy is so much easier. I love sales because it's genuinely an opportunity to serve somebody. And I know the value of the work that I do. And so it's like my love letter back to the universe to being like, here's how I can serve, helping people really feel good about what they do and help them, even as we were talking, like essence embracing ego. If there's a part of us that does come up as we share high ticket, or even if it's entry level fees, if we get scared, then how do I meet that part of me? How do I embrace that part so that I feel more integrated? And I do come from a place that, and I also don't I don't offer fees that aren't at the level that I invest in myself, right? So I think a barometer is like, would I be willing to invest a package for my mom at this rate? So it is an integrity. It's not just bigger, better, more. It's like, no, this is genuinely where the services are at. It has nothing to do with me, but everything to do with the services. And so yes, doing the tools inside out, but then learning the strategies. It's so much easier to hear the feedback when somebody says no. Like sometimes that's the beginning of a sales conversation because trauma can come up, and if you've done your own money work, you can hold a safe and compassionate space for somebody else to process what's coming up for them. And I celebrate somebody's no. If they're clear and they're a no, I'm like, I love that. I've actually celebrated somebody's no, and they were so moved by that they became a yes to working with me because they wanted to offer that to others. And so it's just when people are, I want to do it, but I'm scared. That's when there's an opportunity to serve, to unpack what is it really about, and to empower them to find their own truth. And then it's like, oh, from this place, not selling to somebody and proposing to work with them from their fear, but coming back into alignment with what their truth is and making a decision from there.
And I think really getting used to, as you sort of just made a nod to, the pride of getting a no.
Yeah.
Right? Because like when I'm working with my coaches in training, and there's so much terror of no, of rejection, right?
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't know how many people said no to me already this morning. Like whether it's from an email going out and hundreds of people unsubscribed, or how many people hated my Instagram reel this morning, or how many people had to say no for this many of you to be sitting in a room right now that said yes. And so we can have this like, no is this big scary word, and like it means that I failed or whatever, as opposed to like no is a badge of honor. Like, how like my pile of no's has to be pretty big for my pile of yeses to be big.
Yeah. And it has nothing to do with us. No is no big deal. And if you're genuinely serving somebody to find their authentic truth, that's a success. And so, yes, we have to do, like, I think that personal development really is highlighted in relationships and business. And so if you use it that way, then it gets easier. And then it's easy, and you can hear the feedback to say, okay, well, maybe my sometimes it really is just a strategy question. Like they aren't pitching, or they're pitching from insecurity, and that's okay. But we want to do the inner work so that they can share, okay, the investment is this monthly, silence, like not try to, I know a lot of people will try to lower their fee, assuming that it's the fee. Oftentimes it's not, it's usually something else. And if somebody's really trying to lower their fee, but it's about that they don't feel worthy to invest in themselves. I've had women that have said, I've never spent that much on me. And yet I said, where have you spent that much? And they're like, well, I've sent my kids to soccer camp, and it's like, okay, the deeper conversation is about worth. And if I've served somebody on that, not only are they going to be more empowered to resolve that at the root, but if they do say yes, then they're going to be able to get better results because you've actually hit the thing that was holding them back in their life. And that does sometimes get projected onto a container, a package, but it's not about you. It's about them and how they're showing up in their life and what it is that they want.
And one of your phrases that I love that you use a lot is clients are everywhere.
Yes.
Tell us more about that.
Yes. Clients are everywhere. When you're having a service consciousness, you can see. So for example, I had a gentleman call me for his 23-year-old daughter. He wanted to do coaching. And I'm like, you were telling me that your daughter's 23 and you're calling me. And there was a little bit of like a judgment, but it was lovingly poking at him to be like, is there some kind of way that you're enabling her not to step into being an adult? And he got it right away. And so I invited him to coach with me, and she coached with me. And I set up agreements where I was going to empower her to have adult conversations. I wasn't going to get between them. But like when you're genuinely of service, I created you as a client at a dinner party, right? So like, we went to a mastermind party. Like when you're in love with what you do and you're vibrant everywhere you are, people are attracted to that. So I talk about this like magnetic type of attracting clients and then creating clients, knowing how to double down on what's working for you, what's not. And I think most people try to go online to market, and that's a lot of entrepreneurship and team and investment. And really, there are people in your world that you could start serving, whether they're friends of your friends. You can start a workshop, invite them to bring a friend. You can share your gifts in a way that makes a difference, start to be seen in a new profession. Maybe you were a designer and you go into your old company and you host, knowing the ins and out of that business, what their pain points are, what their desires are, because you always want to have those too in any kind of sales conversation, because then they know what they're investing in. And you give them a taste of your magic, not as a concept, but give them an experience of working with you. And people get it. Then they're bought in. And it's generosity-based business. You're doing good in the world. You feel good about what you're up to in the world. But I can guarantee the more time you are in conversation with potential clients, the more your confidence and your income and impact will increase.
Beautiful. All right. I have 2 more questions for us. So second to last question is, what does it look like to become worthy of money, worthy of abundance?
Yeah. This is an inquiry I'm still on. And I'm financially well, but I'm still on the inquiry of, I jumped, remember, from not being worthy enough to beyond worthy. Yeah. And so part of my work is combing through I am worthy and really letting myself enjoy what I've built. And I think that's what my life is about now. Since my last birthday, I'm like, I just want to enjoy my life. But part of that work is on the psychological. That part of that work is to keep leaning into the edges of what it is I desire. And ironically, I actually find manifestation really helpful for that. I think conscious manifestation is knowing it's already who and what you are. It's already here, that no amount of money can make you more or less than what you are. And playing with the ideas of just like, why not win in your own fantasy? The law of assumption, just playing into how would it go right rather than how it would go wrong, helps flip the mind on itself a little bit for people that can worry or have an old programming. So I think using manifestation in that realm and that way, then, because manifestation is not the end all be all, but it is helpful when used as a tool like that. So it's an inquiry that I'm still exploring. And
although let's be clear, you feel very worthy of making money.
That's right.
You just always feel worthy of the pleasure of spending money
on things. That's right. I did the work on, and I did a lot of the work on receiving. And so then I feel open around those channels, but now around the spending, and I, don't get me wrong, I spend millions in my company a year. So like there's definitely that. But my conditioning with my dad being a financial advisor, I learned to save. So work and save and not spend on things that aren't needed. So that's the conditioning that I'm unraveling right now, which you are so helpful in that realm of just like pleasure. And I'm optimizing more for pleasure in my life than, productivity than anything. And so I appreciate having friends like you that inspire more luxury and play, and why not kind of, it's so does Emilio, my husband. So it's like that, having that in my awareness is really helpful, but doing some of the psychological work too. Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And then final question for you, what we can do this with each other. What is one of your favorite things about being friends with me?
I love, oh my God, I'm gonna put this down. I love so much about you. I love that we can meet in the depths. Like you go there in a way that I have never seen anybody else go there. And there's an honest, radical truth and acceptance about you and a vulnerability that opens my heart. And I feel so met in that. But I also love that we can go to this ecstatic joy of dance and celebration and magnetism, the spiritual realms. Like we do the full human and we do the full spiritual. And I think it's so rare to be met in both of those. And it's the thing that I love about you so much, that we keep evolving and growing together as friends, and that we're willing to really meet each other in the full spectrum of this human experience.
Totally. I love that you are a lover of truth and have such a crystal clarity on things, and that you are like the most fun ever. It's so great. I do love that we have that match of when I started my first like community house in Berkeley, right? Like 20 years ago or something. And I was like, me and my best friend at the time were like, we want it to be a place where you can have the loudest orgasms and the most silent meditation. Yes. And your first brand, I think it might've been a book, but it was definitely a brand, was Stillness and Stilettos, right? Stillness in Stilettos?
Stillness and Stilettos. It was a book that I never wrote, but that's on brand. The yes and.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. So I still feel that match of like this epic dedication to spiritual truth and letting that be this opening to celebrate and to love and to be in pleasure and joy and to explore the full spectrum of this life. In my deepest, hardest moments, you have been the friend that I have called, because the way that you hold my heart and my being in those moments is so profoundly exquisite. Like, what a gift.
Same, honey. I love you.
So yeah, you can tell people where they can follow you. What's cool is we both support each other's coaching certifications.
Right.
We're moving beyond the era of strict competition into deep collaboration.
That's right.
So I love sending people to you. I know they're going to get one of the best educations in being a coach, in sales, in all levels of mastery, spiritual and worthiness and financial. Tell them a little bit more about your coaching institute.
Yeah. So we run a year-long coaching certification program where we do both going deeper. I would say it's for new people, but you can definitely use it. I've had coaches that are, $80,000 months, like they're going deeper into their mastery as a coach. But then we have a choose your own adventure for business. So whether you want to get to, entry-level fees, you want to do high ticket, you want to go to online marketing, it's really about following what your aliveness is. And it's an accredited certification program where it's changed from the inside out, everything we've been talking about here. And people can go to alysonobriga.com to find out more.
And we'll have a link in the show notes as well.
Thank you.
Yay! The practice I want to share with you today to make this real is the embodiment of the unworthiness that me and Alyssa were talking about as like the secret back door to feeling more worthy. So for this practice, you're going to be moving around and hopefully really dropping into how you feel. So make sure you have some privacy. You can go ahead and lock your door. If there's a piece of music that would help you start to get into a low vibration state, you can totally play that piece of music. You can go ahead and hit pause on this. And when you feel ready, hit play again. So I'm going to invite you to start with your eyes closed. I'm going to invite you to feel where in your life you feel unworthy. Where are you begging for crumbs? Where are you self-sabotaging? Where do you know that what you're creating is not in alignment with your highest? And I want you to find the part of you, so it's literally in your body somewhere, that feels unworthy of the love, unworthy of the partnership, unworthy of the money, unworthy of the sale, unworthy of the baby, whatever it is. And the invitation is to take some light breaths into that part, the part of you that feels unworthy, and to let yourself become that part. So as you breathe, it's like bring yourself out of your head or out of your heart into the part that feels unworthy. And as you breathe, your body can start to move the unworthiness. As you inhale, you can start to exhale and sound the unworthiness. So just like I would crawl across the floor to express my unworthiness, feel, how do you want to move to express this unworthiness? Stop distancing yourself from it and start merging with it. And remember, you can't get this wrong. Feel your way through it. Listen to your impulses. Now, as you continue to feel your way to express the unworthiness, I invite you to feel love for this part of you. Deep, profound love and acceptance for the part of you that begs for crumbs, that feels unworthy. We all have it. Every human, without exception, has known this experience at some time or another. Letting yourself love this part of you as you continue to breathe into it and let it express. And then coming into stillness, I invite you to place one hand over your heart, one hand over your lower belly. And let this part belong to you. You can literally say, you belong to me. I will not abandon you. I love you. Pull it in close. Hold it, hug it, just like a little child. Commit to showing up for this part, this unworthiness part, to embracing it and embodying it in a ritual way like we just did. Into choosing to love and feel it. Because when things stay in our unconscious, they control us. And our life will be a reflection of this unconscious. Once we embrace and love and make conscious these parts, they may still be there, but they will no longer control our destiny. Loving and thanking this part of you. And the meditation is complete. And I invite you, if you know this is your work to do, to choose to do this practice for 7 days every morning or 21 days. This is where you'll get the most transformation, where you play a piece of music or set a timer and just let yourself embody and embrace and love the parts of you that feel unworthy, not to make them go away, not to change them, but to love them, to be intimate with them, and to make the unconscious conscious. So as Carl Jung says, when you leave it unconscious, it will control your life and you will call it destiny. So feel the unfelt thing so that even if it's always a part of you, part of the human experience, it no longer controls your life. Thank you for listening to this Tantric Life. I am Layla Martin. This is the home for the realest conversations about sex, spirituality, polarity, conscious relationships, and all kinds of topics that help us live the absolute most incredible lives. Please check out the next episode. Please go ahead and leave your rating and review on Spotify or Apple or YouTube. It's so helpful when you do that. If you want to stay connected to me, the most helpful supportive thing you can do is to head over to laylamartin.com, sign up with your email address. That connects you to me if you want to study deeper with me, if you want to receive my deeper teachings. I do it predominantly via email. Finally, you can check me out on Instagram at @the Layla Martin. And thank you so much for being here.